Well, I mean, most of the transformation trends, as the GBS shared service trends here, will be impacted by the overall economic situation. So if you have a great economy, typically the cost pressure is quite low, and then the transformation is sluggish, or cost pressure don't lead to the same type of solutions, the same ambition levels in actually transforming quickly. Assuming that the economy will get a bit worse, which is probably the best guess, although nobody knows, I would expect that the cost pressures increase, which will mean that people have to look at certain types of transformation initiatives with more seriousness and especially on a different time scale.
Yeah.
And it's typical in any industry that you would only basically move when you have to. I guess it's a sort of human way of dealing with these things. So in terms of GBS or shared services, I think that will increase quite a lot, and components within that will increase. For example, are offshoring, because the wage arbitrage component that currently is not utilized that much will be of significantly more importance, and then because of the business growth in Asia in general, it is sort of a logical step to look at those lower cost locations in Asia to also put GBS activities in there. And that of course is not all of transformation, but within transformation it's a good component. I think Australia, although it has water around it, is not an island in terms of the economy. So we're all globalized today. So the impact will be significant that comes from other parts of the world, and I guess the impact here is most significantly felt from what happens in Asia. And I would guess that China will have some trouble ahead of it. And therefore, best guess that I can make is that possible slowdowns in Asia, especially in China, will have a significant impact. So I'm not sure that there's too much that you can do on the outside factors. From an inside point of view, I think what makes sense for companies in general is simply to prepare and prepare better for the fact that there is always upturns and downturns. And once you are in an upturn, then most probably the next one is a downturn.
Yeah, of course.
And unfortunately, most companies don't prepare that well. But when we look at companies that we call, for example, world class, and one of the big differences is that they are clever enough to really prepare in good times for the bad times. And for example, in transformation, that means transform now when you have the capability and still some time to do it, regardless of the fact that you don't feel the pressures maybe so urgently. And in terms of GBS, set up GBS structures now that are also flexible and scalable, so that you would have the agility to then respond to whatever is going to happen. Because seriously, nobody really knows what's going to happen. So the best thing to do in an economy and in an environment which is increasingly volatile is to simply be prepared for all kinds of different scenarios. Yeah, I mean, Europe's one of many big economic areas. So obviously, if the whole of Europe, we typically look at the European Union as a measurement, but if the European Union is in a recession, which it currently is, at least in 2/3 of it, then that will obviously have an impact. But I mean, we all know that these impacts are mainly mental. So business development is often based on beliefs and trust. So if people have a perception that things are going well, they're willing to invest. And if that's not the case, then obviously the environment's impacted by that. So therefore, decision making in terms of transformation and cost-cutting projects, for example, is going to be probably more on the agenda than it is currently. And we'll see these waves going up and down currently. So I would think that Europe's situation will have an impact on both North America and Australia. And then you have economies which have a larger dependency on the outside world, and economies that have stronger domestic market. So depending on that, there's different, let's say different levels of impact that has. But of course, Europe as one of the big economic areas has some impact. Key piece of advice would be to become simply more agile, not only in core businesses such as production, but also in support areas, which we're dealing with here mostly. and that could be having a shared service center which makes it more agile. That could be outsourcing, because then by definition having an outside partner, you would have a bit more scalability as long as the contract allows it. It could mean higher automation levels, because whenever your process is more automated, you're moving data instead of paper, you have more data flows into the manual activities. So, simple example, if you have 50,000 invoices more or less, if you have 50,000 invoices come in on a paper basis, you actually need to move up and down on the FTEs that work on it.
Yeah.
If you have 50,000 invoices coming in as data flow, it's probably going to be less of a challenge to scale up the system to be able to deal with that. So automation also is something that actually helps with agility. So there's a lot of things like that. Those are just examples. But in general, I would recommend to simply take the agility point very seriously and accept that the market and the environment is volatile. There is obviously a lot of shared service related events out there. We've been participating in Shared Service and Outsourcing Week, I think about 10, 12 years now.
Yeah.
And of course it's an important event in the sense that it in most regions in the world is the largest gathering of practitioners and service providers in one event, and that is important to us in many ways. One, in terms of exchange of knowledge and ideas, because you will, in a larger group like this, obviously find quite a lot of specialists, quite a lot of new ideas, have good debates, good quality of discussions. The other thing is that, of course, from a sort of marketing point of view, it's nicer if there is a large crowd of people who are interested, and it's also for us a good way to meet up with customers, clients, potential clients, and discuss their topics and our possible offerings. So therefore, as far as I can see, this is the biggest and most important shared service event in every single region that it is taking place in. So therefore, I would assume that we're going to participate also in the future.